Hello everyone, my name is Katie and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are finally reviewing Starcatcher, the brand new album from Greta Van Fleet. So I have been waiting for this album for what feels like forever, y'all. I have been so excited and it's finally here and I'm so happy to finally be talking about it. I do want to say this review is going to have some personal bias because I am a huge fan of Greta Van Fleet. They've honestly changed the trajectory of my life in many ways ever since I've discovered this band 2 years ago now. It's just been so different. They inspired me so much. They've just changed so much for me. Like, I started playing the guitar because of Jake, and that sort of trailed into me starting a TikTok account related to music, and then that's what trailed into me starting this YouTube channel. So I feel like a lot of influence in my life has come from Greta Van Fleet. So yes, this review will have some personal bias, but I'm going to try to be objective in ways that I can. And this isn't going to be like one of those reviews where just because I'm a fan I like kiss up to the band and I'm like, oh my god, they're so great. I'm not going to be a D writer here, okay? I'm going to try my best to be objective and honest and give my true honest opinions, and I'm just excited to break this all down and talk about it. So this review is pretty much going to be like my Metallica album review I did a few months ago. Pretty much I like wrote down notes the first time I listened to the album, so it's going to be like a first impressions review and like the first thoughts I had. I have listened to the album in full about 4 or 5 times at this point, so there might be little things I change here and there, new things I have to add, but I want to talk about like that real first impression that I had on the album. So I'm mostly going to be talking about the songs that I didn't react to on this channel because I did do some reaction videos and it was so fun to just hear those singles for the first time ever and see my reaction. Like, I can go back and watch that anytime I want. That's so special to me. But I'm mostly going to talk about the songs that weren't singles and just were released with the album. I'll give a quick overall review of every song, but I'm going to go really in depth with each individual song that wasn't a single. So let's talk about the very first song you hear when you start the album, and it is called Fate of the Faithful. So I feel like this song was a really powerful start to the album. I'm glad they started strong with one of the better songs on the album in my opinion. So the intro starts off with Sammy on the keyboard, or not really sure what he's playing, but it sounds amazing. I love that touch. I broke my pen. Anyways, I noticed that the vocals were like a lot less edited, and you will notice that a lot on this album because it was recorded in a live setting. So it's pretty much like all the band members were in a room together and like recorded it like kind of like they were playing a concert. They didn't do the whole thing where they like individually record their parts and stuff. So in one way it's good because you have more of a live feel and it's more of like just classic band vibes, you know, but it also isn't as polished, which some people like that and some people don't. I'm still iffy about it, but I noticed right off the bat on this song that the vocals are like a lot less edited. There's more of like a weird effect on them, but not as much like auto-tune and pitch correction and that sort of stuff. So it does have like a psychedelic sound to it, which you'll hear a lot of that on this album. There's moments where it like switches from the left to right speaker. I highly recommend listening to this album with headphones because it is so different than when you're just listening to it like out loud on a speaker. Headphones are the way to go. I think I was just freaking out that we have new Greta Van Fleet music because in my notes I'm like screaming in my notes, writing in all caps. I'm putting vocals, dark psychedelia, solo, bridge, everything is perfect. I got a little excited, I think, on the first song. I don't know, I was just really happy to have some new Greta Van Fleet music, and I think that definitely shows. Overall, great start on the first song. I really did like this song. It still is one of my favorites on the album now after listening to the whole entire album multiple times. I think this is one of the strongest ones. Next up we have Waited All Your Life. Okay, I love this one. Spoiler alert, this might be my absolute favorite on the album. It was just so great to go from that first pretty good starter song straight into another song that I love, and it kind of reminded me of like old school Greta Van Fleet, like From the Fires and Anthem of the Peaceful Army. It was really just like a weird combination of their old sound and their new sound. It was kind of like hearing classic Greta Van Fleet but more matured, and then like Josh's vocals are more mature now, so that was just really nice. I was feeling really nostalgic with this one, and I think this is one of the ones that really touched me the most. It's not the most layered and the most like deep and powerful and meaningful, but something about it really feels from the heart. I really like a lot of the lyrics. I think it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. I kind of interpreted the lyrics as Josh. I think he's the one that wrote these lyrics. I interpret it as he's speaking of like he's waited all his life for this dream to come true with this band and all that, and like he's had moments where he wants to go off and do other things, and like he's like battling if he should stay or if he should go. I don't even know at all if that's what this means, but that's how I interpreted it. So I feel like I kind of like connected to it because it was very vulnerable and personal. So who knows what it's actually about, but that's just what I got from it. In this one you have really cool acoustic playing from Jake. You have yodeling, which is like old school Greta Van Fleet. Love a good yodel. I said this is gonna be a good live one. Yes, this is gonna be that arm swayer in the crowd that everyone's like really into, along with Farewell for Now, which we will talk about that. But this is gonna be one of those like more heartfelt ones that I think the fans are gonna really enjoy live, and I think that the band is gonna enjoy playing this live as well. I wrote down here that his vocals have become so angelic and siren-like, and I stand by that. Like, Josh has grown so much vocally. There's some things he does that I don't like as much these days, but then there's other techniques he has that I think have really improved, and I think his work with his vocal coach really shows. Like, he just has perfected this sort of like I said, just angelic, beautiful sound. It shows a lot in this one. There was a moment towards the end of this song that had a really nostalgic, almost 90s grunge band sound. I can't put a finger on which band I'm really thinking of. Maybe a band like Temple of the Dog or something. I don't know. The ending part really reminded me of something I've heard before, but not so much the 70s stuff like they're always compared to. It really had a 90s feel. Next up is Runaway Blues. So this is a really short and fun song. I feel like this was just them getting the blues out of their system because so much of the band is rooted in blues, and Jake specifically is such a fan of rock and roll. You can't say rock without the "n" roll for him, and he just loves his blues, and this was just that like quick, adrenaline-filled blues song. It's fun. I feel like this is going to be a really cool one live. They love doing this type of stuff live, and at their shows where they're headlining, it's just a really fun time. This is when Josh puts on the sunglasses and does all this crazy stuff on stage. I could totally see that being what they do with this song. Like, I know Jake loved this, okay? And I don't know, this was just really like a throwback to their teenage years. If you go back and watch their videos when they were first performing on stage, even before they started doing Led Zeppelin songs on stage, like they did a lot of bluesy, crazy stuff like this, and it was just really cool to hear them do that on an actual album, because usually they don't do that. They'll leave it for the live shows. So I'm glad they allowed that one little like minute-and-a-half song to just have some fun stuff and not take it so seriously. Next up is the Indigo Streak. So I did actually make a video reacting to this one whenever they played it live, and we had like the actual live feed from their microphones, so it was pretty much like the song had come out, honestly. I feel like the actual recorded version is not much different from the live version because they did record it in a live setting, like I said, and I kind of have some nits to pick with that, okay? I feel like I wanted this to be a little more polished. These type of songs like the Indigo Streak, I feel like could be really beautiful, like almost Age of Machine type of vibes, you know, like it feels like when you hear Josh's vocals less perfected and more with these weird effects on them and stuff, I feel like it takes away a little bit of this like grandiose feeling that their last album had. Does that make sense? I don't know. It's like cool in one way because you get to hear the rawness of it, and it's also less of a shock now when you go hear these songs live. It'll sound like the album, which is kind of clever because it's hard for Josh to replicate everything he records live, I'm sure. But so maybe that's one of the motives behind this. I don't know. But I do miss on the Battle of Gardens Gate that really polished sound. I feel like it can be a good thing as long as the songs are creative and don't just sound like a product, you know? I feel like they really perfected that balance on the last album. There were some vocal harmonies on the Indigo Streak, which I love. I always say that I wish Greta Van Fleet would use more vocal harmonies, whether it be Josh harmonizing with himself in the studio, whatever, or if they get like Jake and Sam to harmonize because they're brothers, and a lot of times like family and siblings have a really good natural harmony. And even Danny is really good at harmony. If you go back and watch their older acoustic performances, he does do some harmonies, and it always just sounds really good. I wish they did it more on their album. So we got to hear a little bit of that in this one. Apparently I really liked this one. I remember when I first heard this, and in my reaction video you can see it. When it gets to Jake's solo, I am just blown away. Like, it gives me chills. It's not a super complex solo, but it has a lot of feel to it. It's very just raw. And I wrote down in my notes, stunning, chills, sheesh. I was like, sheesh. It was crazy. And I said maybe better in the live though, IDK. The reason I said that is I feel like the way that Jake played the solo in the live version that I listened to, it had a little bit more of a soul thing in it. I don't know, like this one didn't really feel like he played it exactly the same. I'm gonna have to compare them side by side and then see how I feel about that. But apparently in that moment I was like, the live version was better. Like I said, it's almost the exact same as the live version, so it's not that different. But the solo specifically, I think I might just go back and listen to that live recording more often because it's so good. Next up is the Frozen Light. So I really liked this one right off the bat because you can hear Danny counting in on the drums, and I feel like Danny needs more moments like that. It was just really cool. It did play into the whole live setting thing. Like, you just felt like you're sitting in the room with the band. So that part is cool. This one was really old school and classic sounding. Like, it did have that classic 70s classic rock sound. Of course, it's going to draw in Led Zeppelin comparisons. I don't care. I thought it was beautiful. The voice effect on this one was actually cool. They played around with voice effects so much on this one. Like I said, there's not as much like Melodyne, auto-tune, pitch correction, all of that stuff. But they did do a lot of actual like voice filters and things like that, like voice effects. This one I actually liked more than some of the other ones. It just felt right. Some of the other ones were a little off-putting. Oh no, I had a moment of negativity here. I said the songs are starting to sound the same. That first listen I had, I was starting to be like, all these songs are sort of the same, which isn't really that true in hindsight, but they do kind of mesh together, which you could consider a good thing or a bad thing. It's good when a band has their own distinct sound. And but sometimes it can be a little repetitive. Looking back now, since I've listened to it multiple times, I don't really feel that way anymore. I feel like they did some experimental things on this album while still trying to stay true to their original sound. I freaked out because in this song he has the lyrics "Dreams in Gold," which first off is the original lyrics from The Weight of Dreams, and then that was the name of their tour, which I did get to go to. So I just freaked out. I had like a fan moment with that one. I did get a little critical on this one. I said it feels like maybe more of the writing focus was on the lyrics and a bit less of the music. I still kind of feel that way right now. I feel like some of the songs aren't very complex musically. I think that the lyrics are very like artistic and poetic and thought out, and it's sort of like a storytelling album, but some of the music doesn't really back that up. It feels like some of it could have been a little more powerful. It just feels like it's lacking something in that department. For the solo, I said the solo is very Jake. Could recognize his playing anywhere. Yes, Jake has this very distinct style that I don't know what it is exactly, but when I try to learn to play a Greta Van Fleet song on guitar, I have a hard time playing like him. I don't know what it is. He's just got his own thing going on, and the tone is really truly in the fingers because he just has his own sound that other people don't really replicate. I did write down for Frozen Light that it was underwhelming. I think I didn't like this song as much on the first listen. It's grown on me a little since then, but it's not one of my top ones from the album. I will say in regards to solos on this album, I feel like there weren't as many longer thought out guitar solos. They all felt sort of like shorter and not bad by any means, but there wasn't like a Weight of Dreams moment. You know what I mean? I feel like there wasn't really a big Jake moment, which might be intentional. Maybe they want more focus on other elements. I don't really know. It just felt like we don't really have one of those big moments for the live shows now off of this album. Or maybe we do and I'm not realizing it. Next is The Archer. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it right now. I think this might be the strongest song on the album. Overall, like probably the one you could give the highest rating to, the highest score. You know, if any of the songs on the album are like a 9 out of 10 or even a 10 out of 10, it probably would be this one. For me on the last album, for reference, I would give Heat Above a 10 out of 10. And let's take Meeting the Master, for example. That was the first single they released for this album. That one is like a 9 out of 10 for me. I think The Archer is a 9 out of 10. It's really solid. I don't think any songs on this album are fully a 10 out of 10 for me, but I think this one objectively is probably the best. The first thing I wrote down about it was folky and scrumptious. Yes, it has this folky like intro and feel to it, and then it goes into the super just like classic rock and roll sound. You know, you got like the old school riffage, which is badass. Apparently I was freaking out over his vocals in this song because I said that run when he says Archer. Yes, he does a vocal riff, vocal run when he says Archer. Ooh, it is good. It'll send chills down your spine if you got headphones on. This is so funny. I wrote down can't understand him very well. Yes, I wasn't reading the lyrics on the first listen. I don't think Spotify even had the lyrics on there yet when I listened to it. So, yeah, I couldn't understand anything he was saying, which some people have that criticism of Greta Van Fleet. I don't always have that problem, but in this one, I was like, I have no clue what he's saying. I do now, though, and I actually really like the lyrics now that I've looked them up and stuff. There's a reference to someone named Sarah in the lyrics of this one, and a lot of people speculated what Sarah means. I saw someone mention that Sarah could mean like someone who has been shot with an arrow or something. That could be the reference to the Archer. I'm not sure exactly. This is one of those really cool storytelling songs. This one I feel like they spent more time on lyrically and musically. The music really matches the lyrics in this one. I feel like it's sort of got this like fantasy like vibe to it, like medieval sort of historical element. I think Greta Van Fleet shines a lot when they do things like that. So I don't have anything written down for Sacred the Thread, Meeting the Master, or Farewell for Now, so I'll just give a quick off the top of my head review of those. I think for Farewell for Now is a really cool, like, simple song. It's kind of like You're the One, their older song. It has just like a basic song structure, and it's just meant to be like a love letter to the fans, you know. They're like, we pretty much saying, we love playing for you, thank you for everything, thank you for supporting us. And it was supposed to be like a farewell for their tour, but I feel like this is going to be one of those fan favorites going forward. Like I said, it's super simple and it's not like the most complex song ever, but as a really hardcore fan, I love this song just because I feel like it was really from the heart. Sacred the Thread is probably my favorite of all the singles that got released. At first it was Meeting the Master, and it was kind of that one for a while. I do think that Meeting the Master is objectively better. It should be like rated higher, but for me personally, something about Sacred the Thread feels really just magical. I like the lyrics a lot. I feel like you could interpret the lyrics as Josh becoming like comfortable with who he is through his fans loving and accepting him. It's kind of like about his jumpsuits, but it's more than just about his jumpsuits, okay? It's deeper than that. It's like, especially with him coming out recently, I just feel like he's sort of coming into this sort of comfort knowing that he has love and support from so many people, and he feels safe being who he is and stuff. So it could have really deep meanings, or it could just simply be about him being a diva and really feeling himself in his jumpsuits. Who knows? So let's kind of talk about my final and just overall thoughts on the album. So the first thing I wrote down that was sort of negative was Josh's voice is off-putting at times. Part of this I think is because of the lack of pitch correction, which he doesn't do a terrible job, but I also just feel like his delivery of some things just felt a little bit more tired in some way. I don't know if this is a result of him having different techniques because of his vocal coach and he wants to like protect his vocal cords from future damage more, or if his voice is damaged and he's trying not to push as hard or something. But some moments felt a little weird. Not the entire album, not every performance was this way, but throughout a lot of it I was just like, it didn't feel as powerful as before. Then of course in some songs you have moments where he sounds like a freaking siren, like I said. So I don't know, it's hard to really pinpoint what it is. Something about this one did feel a little bit hollow. I feel like it's missing some elements. I'm just comparing it a lot to the Battle at Garden's Gate, and that album just felt a little more sonic. It was just a little more full of different instruments and just different sounds all around. This one just felt more like you're watching a live show that doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles and layers and all that, which I think is their point. I think they wanted to do that and have this sound, but for me personally, I just feel like it was a little empty. Honestly, no songs have really blown me away the same way that some of their past songs have. Meeting the Master did a pretty good number on me, I will say that, and The Archer and Fate of the Faithful, all of those are really good, solid songs, but I feel like they still aren't quite at the same level as Heat Above or The Weight of Dreams or Light My Love, you know, those songs that are just like insanely perfect. We did get a little bit of variety on this album. I know that was one of my criticisms before, that there wasn't enough variety, but the more I listen to it, the more I realize there's some different sounds on this album. You have some of their older sound mixed with their Battle at Garden's Gate sound, and then you have like some blues with Runaway Blues, some folky stuff. You know, they mixed a lot of things in, so I do appreciate that. On my first impression rating, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. For reference, I would give the Battle at Garden's Gate, I'm sorry, I think it's so funny that the acronym for that is Teabag with 2 G's. That is hilarious. Anyway, I gave that one a 9.5 out of 10. The rating has gone up a little bit upon listening to it more times. Right now, I have it at an 8 out of 10. So we have the last album at 9.5. I feel like there's a little bit of a difference there. Honestly, the Battle at Garden's Gate would almost be a 10. I just feel like I didn't really care for Caravel or the Barbarians that much. Those were the 2 songs that sort of brought the album as a whole down in my rating. And one thing I want to mention is Caravel and the Barbarians were 2 songs that were added to that album at the very end of production, and they were sort of like less thought out songs. They were quicker, they were made faster and all of that. I feel like a lot of this new album sort of carried over the same vibe that Caravel and Barbarians had. They're not bad songs by any means, but they feel a little bit more rushed. I don't know if this is because they've been on tour and they've been more busy and they've been recording this album in between all of this touring, whether it be on their own Dreams and Gold tour or their tour with Metallica, which has been huge. They've been touring with them forever. I saw them twice with Metallica over the span of like a year. Like, they've been doing a lot, so I feel like their full undivided attention didn't really get to go to this album like I would have preferred. I could be completely wrong, but that's just the vibe that I feel. It's like it wasn't necessarily bad, and there's some great songs, but it just feels kind of like a Battle at Garden's Gate Part 2, like a bonus song EP or something like that. It just feels like some of it is like the leftover songs. Not every song, but a lot of them. This could just be my personal bias and nostalgia though, because when I first discovered Greta Van Fleet and when I first listened to the Battle at Garden's Gate, it had such an impact on me that I'll never really be able to describe, and friends that I have never understand what I'm talking about. Like, I have a lot of metalhead friends that hate this band. Like, they hate them. And they don't really understand what I mean or why it has such a big impact on me. And I can't really tell you why either. Obviously, I can say, music is good. I like music, whatever. But it's like so deeper. It's so much deeper. I don't know why. But it might just be that being the reason I don't like this album as much. I will say, each time I listen to it, I find more things that I like about it, and by any means, it's not a bad album. I'm still very happy to have new music from one of my favorite bands. It's honestly a gift. In one way though, with how it feels like sort of a continuation of the last album, it kind of feels like we're on that same journey or timeline or universe that the last album was in. Like, a lot of that album was storytelling that all sort of felt connected, and this one kind of goes along with that too. Like, we have the Master and the Archer, and it's sort of like these characters, I guess, in this world that they're building. And I don't know if it's meant to be a concept album, but I kind of can see the concept and the story if you tie in the last 2 albums with each other. It all makes sense in context, in full context together. There's one song I don't like on this album, and it's The Falling Sky. I do not like Josh's vocals in this song, specifically in the chorus. The wow, wow, that's one of the parts where I feel like he's just like screaming, and it's like a weird laziness to it, and I don't like it. That's one of the things I'm talking about with when I don't like the vocals on this album. That song is a good example. I just, for some reason, can't vibe with that song. So there you have it. If there's any song I don't like, it's that one. But like I said, overall right now I'm at an 8 out of 10 with this album, which is really good. I don't give 10 out of 10s to pretty much anything. And the fact that the Battle at Garden's Gate is 9.5 out of 10 is insane. Like, no one's gonna beat that. I've hardly ever given any album that rating before. So 8 out of 10 is pretty good. It might be an 8.5 out of 10 soon. We'll see. But anyways, that's my overall review and analysis of Greta Van Fleet's Starcatcher. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this new album. Tell me your favorite song, your least favorite song, all of that stuff. And without further ado, I'm gonna wrap up this video right here. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for future music related content. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!